Sure to check that out. So now we are heading down the lower part of the fort. This area, as I told you, is called the Advanced Battery. So now we're going into the main part, the lower fort as it's called. We're going to make a quick stop on the way and talk a little bit about some of the defenses of the fort. Now, how many of you thought that these walls that we're going to go down towards were 30 feet high on your way up the hill? How many of you knew that there was actually a ditch right outside the walls? Yeah, none of you knew, right? And that's part of the defense, that if we were going to be attacked, the Americans wouldn't know that there's a 40-foot wide ditch that existed between them and the walls they were trying to overcome. In addition, they also wouldn't know the height of the wall, which is a big surprise factor. So if you can imagine charging up the hill, we're charging up the hill, we come down, we get all the way up to this point over here, and then you're kind of stuck. But the bad news for you is that there are thousands of soldiers behind you also charging up the hill. And they will push you in because they are also stuck and they have nowhere left to go. And then you end up in this place right here called the dry ditch, which is like a moat, except there's one big difference. Does anyone know what that difference is between a moat and a dry ditch?
No water.
No water. If you had water, it would be called the wet ditch, but we call it the dry ditch because there's no water in it. So you fall down in here. Perhaps you would break your leg, you could break your neck, you could die, you could land on a bayonet. Who knows? Kind of a whole cluster of people around here, but it's possible that you land on a soft pile of your dead comrades. And if that's the case, then you might get up and walk away in one piece. Maybe with a few bruises, but okay. So we still need a way to kill you in here, right? You're kind of stuck, you have nowhere to go. That bridge has already been raised and flipped up, and those steel doors are closed. You don't have anywhere really to go. So now that you're stuck, we need a way to kill you, right? We're on the inside of the fort and we have to kill you who's on the outside of this ditch over here. How are we gonna do it? What allows us to kill you? All those holes. How many of them do you think there are around the fort? How many? 302, exactly. Rifle loopholes they're called. Because they are holes in which we stick our rifles and we shoot at you through them. They actually give you a really wide range. If you notice that the rifle loopholes actually spread out from a very narrow slit, this gives us a significant number of options when we're firing on them. So there's lots, that covers about 95% of this area in the dry ditch, but we need an insurance, right? We need some assurance that we are going to kill everyone in here, because there are some spots that you could hypothetically hide from all this fire. For example, I think that this cozy spot behind the well might give you some solid cover, or you could run up against one of the walls and maybe not get hit. So we needed some insurance to make sure that no one would survive, so we decided to curve the walls. That's what the engineers did. That was their big plan. How does that kill everyone here? Well, built into the hill on the other side of the ditch, so if you go around to the other side of this ditch, built into the hill on this side, we actually have rooms, and in those rooms there are small cannons called carronades, and what we put in those carronades are called canister shots. They're these tin cans, and after loading up the gun with gunpowder, you put these canisters in, and inside those canisters are a whole bunch of musket balls. You will then fire off the cannon. This tin can comes flying, smashes into that curved wall. We're firing at our own walls, but after that canister hits the wall, it explodes with shrapnel and musket balls flying all the way down this ditch. So if we didn't kill you with an aim shot from a rifle, the chaos of the canister shot would come flying down and kill you eventually with all the shrapnel and musket balls flying down. So we really thought this through. And I'll actually show you the tunnel that you can go down under to get into those rooms later on in the tour. So definitely check those out if you got some time. So come on, let's head in this way. It was never a fact. Yeah. That's, I know, right? The British spent 70,000 pounds on this fort, which in today's money is $35 million. And if you also need to take into account the fact that the economy was much smaller, so $35 million was a very significant investment. So as we come out here, you can this is the parade square, this is where most of the training takes place. You can actually take a look and see what's going on right here. So this is the field artillery. These are our Armstrong guns. So right now they're practicing with them, and if you guys are here for the parade at 3 o'clock, I do believe they will be doing a show with those Armstrong guns. They're quite loud and quite impressive. So that'll be fun to check out if you're here for that. So you can see the very precise drill that they're doing. Got to make sure, because when you're dealing with a solid pound of gunpowder, you don't want it exploding on you or anything going wrong, because that can take off your head. And there's lots of nuances about how they do their drill. For example, if you see any of the people running with gunpowder, they always carry it under their armpits like this. Anyone know why they do that? Why would you carry gunpowder under your armpits when running some? Right, so if someone is shooting at you, if you're in a battle and people are shooting at you, and you're holding the gunpowder like this, and a bullet grazes the gunpowder, you are going to blow up. And you will be in lots of little pieces all over, so that they probably won't even collect your body. So we hold it like this when we're running, so that even if we get shot in the shoulder, we're not going to die. If we get shot in the arm, we're not going to die. That way the gunpowder is protected. So those are some of the nuances of this very precise drill that make sure that we are they're not really concerned about the safety, but it takes a long time to train us, so they'd rather not have us blowing up all over the place. So this is how they make sure that we have the best chance of survival, and therefore the best chance of winning a battle. So we're going to keep on going this way, and I hope you guys stick around to see these guys perform later on during the day. We can stop right here for just a sec. This plaque commemorates every regiment that was ever stationed at Fort Henry. There are about just over 30 British regiments that were stationed here in just over 40 years, which is a fair number of regiments for 40 years, right? Why would they keep switching? That doesn't make a lot of sense. Well, the British military had a policy of not keeping in one place for very long. Regiments would be on the move all the time. You would never stay in one place for more than 2 years at a time. Does anyone want to hazard a guess as to why they might want to keep their soldiers on the move?
They don't get too comfortable.
Right, they don't want anyone getting comfortable to any of the luxuries of any one place. And in contrast with some of the other places that the British might send their army, Upper Canada, Fort Henry, was a pretty reasonable place. Low risk of attack, relatively low disease rate, which for the British military was extremely high, and decent weather, right? It gets a little bit hot, it's quite cold in the winter, but compare that with the incredible humidity of the tropical rainforest and other places like that, because remember, at one point the British military commanded 25% of the world's population. That's pretty significant, and places all over the world too, right? So by keeping them adaptable, they'll never be used to any one place, so they're always moving them, right? They never want them to be comfortable in one place. They want them very adaptable. So we're going to keep on moving this way. Yep, you can see them running with the gun. If you notice, these field artillery pieces are extremely mobile. The guns you see on the walls, those we would not take to a battlefield. They weigh many tons. Those cannons over there, the actual barrels, weigh a few hundred pounds, so not even close to as much. Obviously, they don't fire as big of a shot, but it's still pretty substantial when you have them on the battlefield. They can do an awful lot of damage. So, this room over here, does anyone want to guess as to what this is?
Stockade.
Not a stockade. The stockades are in that corner. But judging by the bars on the windows and the padlocks, it's a jail. That's right, it's a jail. Now, who do we put in these jails? Where are they from?
Delinquent soldiers.
Huh?
Delinquent soldiers.
Delinquent soldiers, that's right. A lot of people think that we put Americans in here. We actually don't put Americans in here, because any Americans we capture get the end of the bayonet. We're not going to waste our time feeding them and giving them a shelter. But when soldiers like me get, drunk on the job, we're more often than not thrown in here. Between 3 and 42 days we could be imprisoned here. Lots of other punishments too, and as well you could be thrown in here in conjunction with another punishment like lashes. That's okay. Those are pretty, the low end, the easy end of punishments. So the bad ones, if you really messed up, you could get punishments like transportation, which is shipping you off to a penal colony in a place called Van Diemen's Land, which is modern-day Australia, and you will be breaking rocks for the rest of your life. Sounds like fun. In addition, of course, if you do something like commit treason, you will be executed, of course. And there was a story of only one person who was actually executed at Fort Henry, a guy by the name of Niels von Schultz. And if you guys are around for the Great Escapes tour, they'll talk more about that too. They say his ghost haunts the fort. I haven't seen it yet, but if I do, I'll let you know. So that's these cells, the garrison cells over here. Next room over, we have a place called the privies, which are, they are washrooms, that's right. Now, if you notice, there are no toilet seats. The reason there are no toilet seats is not because we had a shortage of lumber in British North America. There is no shortage of trees here, as I'm sure you all know. It's actually because they want their soldiers to be very efficient. They don't want them wasting their time in here. So they figure if they make it really uncomfortable for soldiers to make use of these rooms, they won't waste their time in here. Especially when your cleanliness, which is to say you falling in there, is dependent on how strong your arms are, because you kind of have to brace yourself there in order to use them. They know you're not going to be wasting any time, because if you do give out with your arms, you will be following 5 feet into a pile of excrement. Not fun. The way they flush these is there are drains throughout the parade square that collect water in these cisterns, and they can lift up a hatch and the water will flush in and take all the waste out down into Lake Ontario, which coincidentally is the same place we bathe. Yeah, fun stuff, right? All right, so let's keep on moving this way. Okay, these are the women's washrooms over here. They, of course, have toilet seats because who cares what they do with their time? They can spend as much time as they want in there.
That's right.
Yep. And there would only be 18 to 20 women at the fort, and over 300 soldiers. So just so you know, the women have just almost as many stalls as the men do. So 18 women can take their time. 300 men that all need to use the washroom at the same time need to be very, very fast, right? Especially when you can't just leave in the middle of a training period to use it, right? So we're going to head into the officers' quarters now, and we'll talk a little bit about the lives of the officers. Now, have you ever heard of the terms commissioned officer and non-commissioned officer? Any of you guys? Yeah? So here's the origins of that phrase. A commissioned officer